For my Genius Hour project, I have decided to construct this video essay to inform and spread awareness about homelessness in hopes to raise empathy and understanding for the unhoused. This video will have 5 sections where I briefly speak upon the following topics: homeless history, media's responsibility for the negative stigma, debunking stereotypes, the negative stigma, and why empathy towards homeless people is crucial in our communities. Homeless history. Homelessness first became a national issue in the 1870s. Back then, homeless individuals were known as tramps, which described overwhelmingly young, able-bodied white men who created a culture that blended the search for work with a love of the open road and disdain for the constraints of workers in industrialized America. From 1873 to 1874, American population was 40 million, and 3 million of those were considered homeless. Rather than housing, jobs were viewed as a solution to the plight of transients wandering the country. The word hobo first appeared in the 1880s in Western America and softened the public's perception of tramps. Skipping a few generations, the deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill is believed to be one of the first predecessors to the homeless crisis in the U.S. In the 60s, civil liberty activists pushed for better lives for those who were kept in low-quality psychiatric care centers by providing new medications and community services. In 1960, there were 535,000 mental health patients living full-time in state hospitals, and by 1980, that number dropped to 137,000. So where did they all go? Well, many governments didn't provide enough funding for programs to help these people live out normal lives beyond these care centers. And with the decline of affordable housing, more mentally ill people ended up on streets or in shelters. The 1980s marked the emergence of what now may be considered the modern era of homelessness. Although estimates of the number of homeless people in the 80s is unclear, as counts and claims by different authorities vary, it is believed that by the late 80s, the homeless population grew to somewhere between 400,000 and 600,000 individuals, compared to an estimated 123,000 in 1980. Major forces that changed the complexion of homelessness in the modern era include gentrification of the inner city, high unemployment rate, the emergence of HIV/AIDS, limited affordable housing options, and deep budget cuts to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and social service agencies in response to the 1970s recession. To avoid a topic that deserves its own video essay, I encourage you as a viewer to think back to your U.S. history class or even just research the term Reaganomics. It might answer a whole lot of questions as to why homelessness spiked in the 80s and why U.S. economics haven't been the same since. In 1978, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, budget was over $83 billion. This budget is a reflection of federal government's commitment to building, maintaining, and subsidizing affordable housing. When Reagan took office in 1981, he began the process of dismantling social programs designed to assist the poor, including the federal funding of affordable housing production. By 1983, HUD's budget fell down to $18 billion, about 1/5 of its previous level. This brought an immediate halt to housing productions and slowed down the department's actions of creating affordable housing. Since the 80s, rent in metro areas across the country have outpaced wages. Between 1979 and 1984, 44% of new jobs paid poverty-level wages, and over 3/4 of new jobs created were at minimum wage levels. The media's responsibility for the negative stigma. When I'm talking about the media, I mean news outlets, movies, TV shows, and just general media that the public consumes. The media drives public awareness, influencing demands for societal responses and financial and political commitments to solutions. Unfortunately, the media tends to describe homelessness in limited terms, focusing on individual stories rather than on systemic issues that cause homelessness. Addressing these misinterpretations is crucial for fostering genuine understanding and developing effective solutions to the complex challenges faced by individuals experiencing homelessness. Research by Barbara Schneider, Carrie Chamberlain, and Darren Hoggets shows that this oversimplification often overlooks the diversity within the homeless population, perpetuating misconceptions that hinder efforts to address distinct needs. Debunking stereotypes. Number 1. Most homeless people are addicts. It is believed that only 20 to 40% of homeless people have a substance abuse issue. In fact, abuse is rarely the sole cause of homelessness, and more often is a response to it because living on the streets puts a person in frequent contact with users and dealers. Number 2, they're dangerous. Homeless people are far more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrators. Of course, some homeless individuals may commit acts of violence beyond self-defense, but such acts rarely affect the non-homeless individuals they encounter. To put it in another way, any violence by homeless people is either self-defense or due to the rare violent perpetrator who preys on other homeless people. Non-homeless people need to understand this. Number 3, they just need to get a job. A 2021 study done by the University of Chicago estimates that 53% of people living in homeless shelters and 40% of unsheltered people have full or part-time jobs. And having a job doesn't always mean housing security. A lot of entry-level jobs do not pay enough money for someone to afford rent and bills, especially in big cities. Number 4, all homeless people live on the streets. A person doesn't have to be living on the streets to be experiencing homelessness. This is especially true for women and youth, who often find themselves couch surfing or living in cars or even shelters. Someone can be homeless without you even realizing. The negative stigma. People experiencing homelessness are ignored, isolated, exploited, and even become victims of violence. The negative stigma that homeless people are lazy, drug addicts, or dangerous creates a greater barrier between the housed and unhoused. This barrier makes it harder to get the general population to take action in supporting the unhoused properly. These people are not alien. These people are no different from you and I. Unhoused people are simply people who are struggling financially, and treating them as if they aren't a part of our community can worsen the mental health of homeless individuals and alienate them to points where empathy and compassion for them becomes obsolete. So why is empathy for homeless people important? Empathy towards homeless people and overall being informed on the unhoused introduces compassion and understanding of the homeless population, which eventually would lead to action and a better world for those fallen under poverty. A few years ago, a team of economists at Zillow found that once cities cross a threshold where the typical resident must spend more than 1/3 of their income on housing, homelessness begins to spike rapidly. When incomes don't keep pace with the cost of rent, a cascade effect ripples through the housing market. High-income folks start renting places that middle-income folks used to rent, middle-income people start renting places that low-income people used to rent, and low-income folks are left scrambling. It's important to remember the average person is only one paycheck away from being in the same situation as homeless people. I really hope this video essay brought you some new information about the unhoused that you may not have had before. I find it really important that we as American citizens find a solution to the homeless crisis. Let me repeat, the average person is only one paycheck away from being in the same situation as homeless people. Really think about that. Missing one paycheck can land an average family or person into homelessness. It can happen to anyone. Thank you for listening.